fade him. I already know you're gonna get it. So yeah,
exactly. So let's dive right into quarterbacks.
Quarterback.
Our QB. So we're gonna do a quarterback wide receiver stacks this week. There's a few games that I targeted when I looked at this. We know the numbers are going to be good, but we got a lot of uncertainty around injuries. We don't know who's going to play, who's not. So let's jump right into the main slate of quarterbacks.
One of my favorite quarterbacks.
Who's your top two quarterbacks that you have right now?
Well, I know who. I guess if I got my personal two, some people will say Josh Allen should be one of those. Yeah. You know, we've been concerned about his performance here recently. We talked about his stacks. We talked about, I think you were going to talking you probably out of playing Stephon Diggs anymore at this price at 7.5.
At that stack, yeah. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. I'm talking myself out of playing.
I kind of like the Josh Allen Beasley Diggs. I'm like, even when I'm not stacking Josh Allen, I just keep playing Beasley at 5.2.
Or even Beasley Sanders.
He's just steadily targeted. I mean, even Beasley more so than Sanders. I mean, you look at his last 3 games, Beasley, it's 9 targets. It's 13 targets. It's 11 targets. And that was while Sanders had a 0 in there.
That's true. And Josh Allen's throwing the ball. That's the one thing about it is he threw it 47 times last game.
Yeah.
He had 262, but he was awful because of all of his turnovers, which the good thing about the Josh Allen experience is that you're either going to have a game where he has a bunch of this.
Right.
He'll bounce back, and he's going to have I can expect him to have a solid game afterwards.
So, but my two favorite is going to be Brady and Herbert right now. I think Tom Brady, they had the week off. He's had the bye.
That's true.
He's deadly after buys.
He's very deadly
when Tampa came out of the bye last week, I don't think they lost anymore. They went to the march from then on. Like this streak that they were on, it came when they kind of talk about Tampa Bay Super Bowl run. It was after their bye.
Yeah, it was. I was wondering because Tampa finished 11-5 last year, and it was one of those everybody was like, there's no chance they're going to win.
I think they went into the bye with probably like 3 or 4 of those losses.
Yes,
it was
they lost mostly everything
and everything reeled after that. And so when you look at the stack, it's Thursday when we're recording. Chris Godwin didn't practice again today. I was kind of loving him at 7-1. So the more bodies are out, it slims down the tree. And so if for some reason God don't play, I'm like, you can just Brady and Evans playing Washington. Nobody's scared of that secondary anymore.
Yeah, you're right.
You worry that we're running out of healthy bodies and that, but haven't we seen Brady throw it to nobody for years? And with Evans and O.J. Howard and Fournette, I think he can get the job done. But I kind of like the Brady. I like Brady coming out this bye this week.
So which wide receiver do you feel like is the better stack with Brady this week? Are we going to go back to Godwin?
I like Godwin if he's healthy. Because he's been on a tear as of recently. That seems to be since Antonio Brown has been out, and especially with Brown and Gronk out.
Because Brown is still done, right?
He's probably not going to play this week. It's still, they hadn't
officially
ruled out, but because he's not practicing yet either, and so.
Yeah, Godwin's had for the last 4 games 11 targets, 5 targets, 11 targets, 12 targets, and he's put up numbers.
The last 2 weeks is 28 and 31 fantasy points. He's over 100 yards both of those weeks, touchdowns in both games, and
then Evans is 8, 4, 10, 4.
Evans hasn't been bad.
He's been the opposite. He's been the opposite. I mean, he hasn't been bad, but he's had some games like the Philadelphia game where he's off on a Thursday, but that didn't matter for us.
Right.
But as far as the weekend
games, New Orleans games because he never plays well against Lattimore.
Lattimore. He got in the end zone, and Lattimore.
Look at Evans' game log up and down the season. It's 24, 21, 14, 32, 31, 12.
He's up and down.
Yeah, let Godwin not play, and I think Evans is just
a Godwin doesn't play. It's 100%.
It's almost.
It's 100% all Evans.
Almost a lot
because he's going to eat. He's going to eat Washington's defense alive. Yeah. Washington has nobody on Washington's defense is going to stop him.
I think that Dak is going to bounce back. I think it's hard to stack Dak because we got too many options. Lamb at 7K, Cooper, and we expect Michael Gallup back. Now you talk about a popular play. He's only 4K coming off of IR, and I don't think I think they missed the pricing on him. I don't think they expect him back. So. He's only 4K this week.
Gallup is only 4K.
And in the one game that he played, he got hurt in the Tampa game. He had 7 targets when he went down that game.
Dak does like him.
So
he's one of his favorite slot guys.
So I think at 4K he might be. But again, we're looking at a crowded offense. We got Lamb, Cooper, Gallup. This is a good spot for Schultz. And then let's not forget Zeke and Pollard. So it's a lot of it's a lot of mouths to feed when you're trying to hit this fantasy ceiling. But I think individually Dak has a good game. And then one of my cheaper quarterbacks I really like this week, I think nobody, and I don't know if people are missing, but Russ come back 6'7". DK Metcalf, coming off these Geno weeks, he's only 6'8". That's an AK receiver. Lockett's only 6'5". You kind of talk about a cheap stack against Green Bay. If Aaron Rodgers plays, I think that game is a 28-24 Seattle Green Bay afternoon type game. I don't know.
So Wilson is going to start this week against Green Bay at 6'7",
cheaper than Dak.
How rusty do you feel like he could be in this game?
I don't know.
I mean, he did have a messed up finger. He wasn't throwing it.
That's true.
That's the thing to think about. It was his throwing finger.
And I think, I started off. I said Brady and Herbert, and then we just kind of started talking about Brady. I play Herbert every week, and the universe is well again because Allen is back to being priced above Mike Williams again. Because Allen's been on a tear while Mike Williams isn't doing anything. But at the same time, when you kind of think about the game theories at 6'6", maybe that's when you go back and buy Mike Williams again. Well, he's got a good matchup. I think that the Chargers Minnesota game is going to shoot out.
Okay.
So I think you can look at Herbert with any of them and running back with Dalvin Cook. We'll get to running backs, but I kind of like that game stack, though.
So last few years, Dallas defense haven't been very great. Matt Ryan is one that I was looking at as well.
I don't mind him at 6K. Okay.
Last year, he put up 24 for 36, 273, and 4 touchdowns in that game where they shouldn't have lost, but they ended up losing.
Against Dallas.
Against Dallas, when Dallas' defense was bad last year.
So we was off air. We talked about Matt Ryan. So you talk about stacking. If you play Matt Ryan, Cordero Patterson, and Kyle Pitts, you encompass the entire Atlanta offense, and you get receivers at a running back and a tight end spot because that's clearly their wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 situation in Atlanta.
Oh, it is.
Yes, Zacchaeus had 2 touchdowns on 3 targets and 3 catches. Russell Gage got 8 targets. He had 8 catches, but do you really feel,
unless he's cheap enough?
Yeah, but I think that you can run it through Ryan, Patterson, and Pitts as a stack.
My thoughts have always been about guys that are cheap like that.
Yeah.
You only play them if you think you're going to get a touchdown out of them.
Yes.
That's kind of because it's very hard, or unless they're a burner like a Deshaun Jackson, a Van Jefferson, where you can get 100 yards receiving
or if you're, he's not a first guy in. Like, say you're just trying to think of all kinds of creative ways to stack Dallas and Atlanta because they do expect this to be an up-paced game. It's a 55 total.
You're
in the dome. I mean, it's 55, but Dallas favored by 8.5, so they're heavily on the Dallas side. They have a 31.75 implied total, while the Falcons only got 23. But if Patterson and Pitt scores a reception touchdown from Ryan, you nail the stack. Yeah,
and all the money's on Dallas right now, and the line has basically dropped about half a point to 9 right now from 9.5 at the open. So
Atlanta have quietly won 4 of their last 6. They're like in the playoff run. They're 7th in the NFC. So they're going to come out playing to win.
That's a good point.
Full throttle. So we're at the halfway point of the season.
Yeah.
This is the time of the season where you start looking at records.
Yeah, that's a good point.
In these sports and seeing, okay, who's playing for something? Who's in the playoff run?
And those are the ones that are going to probably put up the most numbers because they're going to be out there throwing that ball.
Yeah, at least the most effort.
Points.
At least the
they'll
most
put those
effort
in. Yeah, they'll put the most effort in. So that's a good point.
And so if Atlanta comes to this game thinking that they can win, it has to be through those guys. And so we can start narrowing down our player pool a little bit. So I don't hate the Ryan call at 6K.
Now, one last quarterback before we go ahead and jump on into this next stack that I think is a cheap one to consider only because of who they're playing against is the Colts. Colts-Jags is a divisional opponent. Mm-hmm. The Jags clocked in on the Bills. They're not going to do that again.
Right.
They won't do that again.
I don't mind Carson Wentz. I think somebody said if you give him the penalty yards, he's over 300 yards each of these past few weeks. And and you could easily put him with Michael Pittman.
That's your stack.
When we get to wide receiver, Michael Pittman's going to be one of my favorite. And he's coming up. He's up to 6'3". He was 5'5". Michael Pittman's up to 6'3".
Okay, so he's starting to hit the 6,000 threshold, huh?
But he's earned it.
No, you're right. That's a good point.
You're in the dome. You're in Indy.
Wentz is only 5'9", which is why I would say he's a good cheap one between him, like a Jalen Hurts, who's going to guarantee to run a lot. Yep. That's something to consider. Yep. The question is and Wentz has 3 touchdowns the last 2 games passing. Mm-hmm. So when he's staying in the 20 range.
So when we're building our lineups, that helps us pay for Dalvin Cook this week. That helps you play for Devontae Adams if you want to.
Yep.
That helps you play for expensive tight end if you want to. So I don't mind that. I'm like, you could play, I can find reasons to play Tannehill and AJ Brown this week. Because I've kind of been liking AJ Brown in the past. He's been on the tear.
And
now that no Henry, and Julio's not
It's like he's all great, and then Tannehill just doesn't give everything
Yeah.
else. But they're winning games,
Yep.
and they need to keep winning. They desperately need to keep winning.
And at 6'5", you can even find a reason to play Jalen Hurts, but I just don't like playing him anymore because we depend on so much rushing. Like I keep saying that the floor is going to fall out of his game when he doesn't
It has
run.
the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and thankfully, I finally got off the Devontae Smith train. We talked about that. But
so we'll get into that in just a minute. So